Hey YouTube, Ben Ochart here. Let's talk about my new project. To really understand this process, we're going to have to go back several months. I was kind of sick of the scratches that were on this tank. Don't ever buy a tank and have the person tell you that when you fill it with water, the scratches will not show. That's a lie. They do show. So I wanted something different, but I also wanted a different stand because my stand was making too much noise when I'd open the drawers. So I looked on Craigslist and I found a stand for sale, and that turned into something else. It turned into a stand, a sump, and a tank that the person had. I ended up taking it all with me. Hey, here's the beginning. How you doing? I had to pull the back seat out of the Suburban. You can see it right behind me here because I need a lot of room. This should be enough room for what I'm going to get. Stay tuned. I've arrived down in Orange County, and we're going to raid this garage here belonging to John, who you see in the background, who I met on Craigslist. I'm loaded up and ready for the trip home. From Orange back to Arcadia. Not sure what I'm going to be doing with all this stuff here. Not familiar with this system. I guess I've got a little research and learning to do. Got a nice unfinished canopy. A nice 150 gallon acrylic that I'm going to get professionally redone. So it's like brand new. And a brand new cabinet that was custom made for this particular tank and overflow system. Currently it's all outside in a workout area that we have adjacent to the house, and so stay tuned. To give you even a bigger backstory, I saw this stand on Craigslist. I just wanted the stand, but he was willing to throw in the acrylic tank, even though it looked pretty rough, for a pretty good price. So I decided to go ahead and go for both of them. When I sent the pictures to the guy that refurbishes the tanks, he quoted me a pretty high price because it was in pretty bad shape. Then I had to start the work on the stand. I sanded it all down and I added a light green stain that my wife had picked out, but she hated it, so I had to cover that all up with a mocha stain, and it turned out okay. I'm happy with it. The tank finally arrived and it looked great. It did look like new. I was happy with it. And then some real work had to start. I had to remove the 3D background, and fortunately it's a rocky thin from Universal Rocks, so all I had to do was roll it up and pull it out of the tank. I had to cut about 4 inches off the top. Real tough materials, like working with old leather, but I was able to cut it. I was actually very, very shocked at how much detritus and waste was behind the 3D background. Certainly in hindsight, I would recommend, and I would plan on practicing getting back there at least every few months and really giving it a good vacuum, or do like some people do and run a power head behind the 3D background to blow all that detritus out of there, because it had really accumulated both in the substrate and also caked on pretty heavily on the glass behind the 3D background. I can only imagine the work it would be if you had one of the more thicker 3D backgrounds. Mine was very thin, so it's very easy to pull away from the back. You can see some of the waste that had caked onto the back of the tank, and that was all the way across, and the gravel at the bottom there was very, very, very dirty and required a lot of work. I had to then rinse the new substrate, crushed coral from Florida, Caribbean Sea, and it said pre-rinsed, but it was really like rinsing concrete. It ran milky for about 20-30 rinses, very frustrating. I decided to black out a side of the tank, and I decided to glue down the background using a aquarium safe silicone. You can see I put some heavy books there trying to get it to stick. In the middle of all this, both of my light units blew out. I don't know how, but both of my 36-inch units blew out, and I ordered the 72-inch Beamsworks. I love the color spectrum on it. I actually like it a lot more than the units I had before. So that's an upgrade. What I like about Beamsworks is that they hardwire their light system, so you don't have that little jack that you plug in that gets corroded. I had to also learn all about sumps and plumbing and valves and all that stuff, and I had to figure out what I was going to do with these SunSun 702s and all the seated media that was inside of them. Fortunately, I had this side door that I could work in. I ended up using one of them and then using the other one as a spare. It finally started coming together. It started to look pretty good, and it was time to add the fish, which I did. And the fish took to the transition seamlessly because I had kept the beneficial bacteria and simply transferred it over from the established filters, providing me with an instantly cycled tank with plenty of beneficial bacteria. So it was pretty much ready to go immediately. As you can see here, the fish look pretty bright. I think there is something to what people say when they talk about how a lighter substrate can pull out different colors in fish. These fish look pretty luminescent, translucent. I'm seeing some great colors in these fish. Let's break it down. Let's start with the cabinet. The cabinet was raw wood, unfinished, and I gave it a coat of a green coat, which my wife hated. So I put a color called mocha over the green, and it turned out pretty good because you can see a little bit of green through the upper coat, and so it ended up looking pretty good, I think. The whole purpose of this originally was just to buy a new stand because I was sick of the stand I had before. The doors would creak when you'd open them, and sometimes I'd have to do things with the tank when my wife was asleep, and it would wake her up because this tank is in the bedroom. So to keep the peace, I started shopping for a stand, and what ended up happening is the person had a stand, but he also had an acrylic tank, this 150 acrylic, clear for life, and he had a sump. So I made him an offer on the whole package. He accepted it, and I took it all away. Now the tank had been used obviously by a saltwater, possibly a reefer, and someone keeping corals and saltwater fish, and it had a buildup of minerals. So I had it professionally refinished. And then you'll notice the decor is the decor that was in the 135. Those are the Universal Rocks background and Universal Rocks plants, except for these two plants at the very end, which I added to provide additional cover, which looks like the eye biter was using, cover for fish so that if they need a place to be out of line of sight. Interestingly enough, while I was doing this conversion, I had all the fish in the 100 acrylic, and they were pretty calm. There wasn't a lot of battles going on there. And in that crowded space, certainly makes a case for a tank that is heavily stocked with regards to aggression. I've also heard from a lot of folks that a lot of these fish are open water fish, and that is true, but I do notice that from time to time they do appreciate having a place where they can kind of chill or be sort of off the grid for a minute, tucked in between one of these plants and just out of sight for a minute. Let's look underneath the tank. I retired one of the two 704Bs that were on the 135, and now I'm running just one 704B, SunSun 704B, this one here. And the power heads that I had on the other tank, you know I'm real big on power heads, well, they're actually down here in this container. Reason being is that the massive amount of water that's being run by the sump pump is creating all the surface between that and the skimmer of the overflow tower, which I'll show you in a minute. I'm getting all of the water surface agitation that I need. Plus, besides that, you have this going on over here, this drip system, which is creating a tremendous amount of oxygen. And so what I have is I have the drip system raining over some pad, and then over some blue balls. Those of you who know my channel know my blue balls. And I have some pinky at the bottom there. So I kind of took a little bit of an old canister guy's idea and put it together with this sump. If you think it should be set up differently, please comment below. I definitely want to hear it. From there you go into this chamber here, which really it has nothing in it at this moment, but I'm going to be putting the algae scrubber that you saw unboxed in the last video. This sump is made by Amiracle sump system, and you know, I tried to find information on the internet. You can't find too much about them. And it's connected by a tube or a pipe that you see there at the bottom. That connects this chamber. So you have this two-chamber section here, and then this chamber where I'm going to put the algae scrubber from Santa Monica Filtration. That connects with some piping through a bulkhead and a pipe over to this section here where the pump is located. This is a Rio, R-I-O pump. It moves a tremendous amount of water, I don't know, like 900 gallons an hour or something or more. And but of course you have to figure in the length of the tubing, that sort of thing, and slows it down. There's that large rubber thing you see there is something that if it goes too low, it turns the pump off. So it keeps me from burning my pump out. And it's something you would buy for a sump at home. And I have some bags of charcoal, some Purigen. In the very back chamber there where the pump would normally go, it's full of all types of biological sponge balls and some pumice and all kinds of stuff back there that I normally would have put in this chamber right here, but when I put the pump in this back chamber, it gets too loud. I also have my heaters down here, and they're being run by the controller that you see back there. The controller I picked up from Gemco. This is a real heavy-duty monster, and I had them put an extra plug in it, so it runs two heaters, and you can see the wiring on that thing. It's just super heavy-duty, and a lot better than lot more heavy-duty than the Inkbird that I'm running in the system, in the acrylic I have in the living room, the 100-gallon. So you can see I have a ton of media back here. And of course some chemical filtration here between the Purigen and the charcoal and all of this here. So tremendous amount going on, and a completely unused chamber here that will end up where I put my my algae scrubber. And the 704B here is only sponges now. The whole thing is used only for water polishing and water clarification. It is entirely sponges. One thing I love about this stand is this sort of secret side door here. I'll show it to you. This allows me to get at the equipment from the side. It also would help me to remove that sump. If I ever had to remove it, I could slide it to the right and get it out through this opening here. So the person who had this thing made, had this stand made specifically for that sump system and for this tank, because it has the opening was cut into it right here. You can see here, right above the valve, there's an opening in the stand. I put a shut-off valve, which has come in very handy. Like most people who start a sump, they have a flood or two. I overflowed the sump, and I overflowed the tank. And I want to thank Dennis and my friend Dennis Riddell for some advice on what to do to avoid that kind of thing. And he helped me out quite a bit in some tips, being a person who keeps a sump himself. Another thing I like about this hood is the way it opens and closes. It's very easy. It doesn't allow light to come out through the front. The stand I had before would leak light. And I picked up a 72-inch Beamsworks, and it has a nice wide spectrum of lights. It has blues and greens and reds, and I'm really liking it a lot. And it sits perfectly on the little stabilizers that were put in for the canopy. This tank is a little bit lower than the one I had before. That's okay. What I lost in height, I make up in depth, and it's a lot easier for me to work on because I can easily reach every section of the tank without having to climb up on a ladder and immerse myself to my shoulder. So I like that a lot. It's a lot easier to work on. So if you folks have any tips, any ideas, any comments about this setup, and certainly share them below. The fish seem to like it. They all are looking quite bright. And I brought in the extra two male Taiwan reefs in here. We'll see how that goes. And of course the Fusco's looking good. So they've been through a lot recently, being moved to the 100, then being moved back here. So if you have any comments about this setup, about the way things are set up, certainly post them below. I'd love to hear them. I'm learning about this process. I'll tell you, besides going to friends like Dennis Riddell, I've also gone to a lot of the reefers, a lot of the folks that keep the reef tanks, and the folks that keep corals, that sort of thing. Those YouTube channels have a tremendous amount of information about sumps, far more advanced than anything I will ever do. But still, I did get a lot of great information. Now, you'll notice the substrate. This is Caribbean Sea coral, crushed coral. I wanted to go with something lighter and something that would buffer. And I've noticed the fish like it a lot, especially the Rostratus. He's been playing in it and messing with it quite a bit when he wouldn't really do much with the sand. So, and I do see that there is more of a luminescence, more color in the fish, perhaps related to the whiter substrate. So this is 150, so I've gone from a 135 to 150. So stay tuned, and for the big reveal of the 165, since I'll be moving up in 15-gallon increments. That's a joke. I hope to keep a nice stable situation with this tank for quite some time. Of course, one of the advantages of a sump is apart from the enormous amount of media that you can put into it, as is stressed by Half Man, HAPNATION in numerous videos that he's put out, the enormous amount of media that you can put into one. But the other advantage, of course, the obvious advantage, is that you've increased the water volume, total water volume of your system, so naturally your parts per million is going to go down. So these fish are now living in an environment that has less parts per million of waste, just because of the fact that the total water volume has been increased by a very high percentage by having this amount of water added to the total water volume. So even though this is technically a 150 gallon tank, you're actually looking realistically at about 180 to 190 gallons of total water volume. I haven't really measured how much water volume I have below here, but your water volume is increased dramatically because of the sump, and that waters down your parts per million. So you're going to have fish living in a much healthier environment. If you really want to learn about sumps, I do recommend you subscribe to some of the reef and coral keeping YouTube channels, because those individuals, I mean, you remember I released a video a while back called Cichlids Are Crack. These guys are they're on the Breaking Bad blue ice crack that they're on a whole different kind of crack, and they're into color-coded pipes and dosing that is done mechanically and electronically, and they're into all kinds of stuff that is just completely off the hook, which is pretty amazing, I think. So watch some of the reef keepers, watch some of their videos, and you'll find out a lot about these sumps. But again, I'm a complete novice. I'm Sump 101. You can call me Sumpy. But certainly if you have any tips, I would love to hear them. I forgot, I wanted to show you the Overflow Tower. This is the Overflow Tower, so the water comes in through there. So it skims, keeps the surface nice and clean. The water runs down this tower, which runs along the side of the tank. You can see it here. And down to the outlet at the bottom. You could look into the tower. It was clear acrylic, but there was a little bit of calcification on the inside of the tower. And I didn't like the way that looked, so I went ahead and I blacked out. I just used black spray paint and I blacked out the area that runs along the tower. So I feel that came out okay. And you can see the water trickling down. So there's a tremendous amount of water movement in this system between the water trickling down this overflow and the tremendous amount of output that I have going on. You can see why I didn't need the power heads. Add that to the fact that you have that rain trickle going on down below, and I have all the oxygen that I could possibly need for this tank. So the fish are not going to be lacking any oxygen whatsoever. So that's it. Share your comments below. Let me know what you think. If you are familiar with sumps and have some tips, I definitely want to hear them. One of the reasons I have a YouTube channel is because I learn a lot from you guys. So feel free to give me your tips. Thank you so much. Do post them below. Don't forget to share, rate, subscribe, all that good stuff. And thank you so much for your support of the channel. And maybe I'll see you at the ACA in Houston. Bye-bye.